Hello? Hello? Can everyone hear? Is the volume okay? Yeah? There's a load of seats at the front, so I know it feels a bit like a school assembly, but if people want to come and take these at the front for a better view, feel free. I'm Sean McCleary, the Managing Director for Insight Recruitment. I'd like to firstly thank everybody for coming. This is our first Insight Into event, so really pleased with the turnout. I'd like to thank in particular the Insight team who have worked hard behind the scenes to put this event together. This amazing you're going to hear a little from them later on about their backgrounds, their stories, but thanks to everyone for giving up their time. I haven't got a Parker, and I haven't yet said buzzing or our kid, but I am a Manchester lad at heart, born and bred in Manchester. So to be able to talk about two things that I'm really passionate about, technology and also Manchester, is really exciting to me. In terms of in order for today, Kirsty will be talking you through, taking you into the Q&A part of the evening. You'll get to hear from every panel, and then probably from about 8 o'clock onwards, there'll be pizzas, beers, and opportunity to network. The panel part of the evening is, we want it to be as interactive as possible, so feedback, questions, please get involved. But we could ask if you maybe put your hand up so that Kirsty can do her best Annika Rice impression and run over to you and get your question. Okay, look, thanks again, everybody. And I'd like to hand over to Kirsty from Tech North.
So for those of you who don't know, I am from an organisation called Tech North. Tech North is funded by the Department for Culture, Media and Sport to shout about the great technology companies that exist here in the north of England. It's my job to understand if we have a digital skills gap, what that looks like and what we can actually do about it. And from the Tech Nation report, which we just launched yesterday, we know that talent is most businesses' biggest concern, so we're here today to talk about what we can do about it. And I want to say what we can do about it because people think it might be a school problem or it might be a government problem, but actually employers particularly need to get involved with working out what we actually do to make sure that people have the right skills for the jobs that exist today and in the future. Can I get a show of hands for what people in the room actually do? Have we got business owners in the room? Fabulous. Not me. People looking for work? Job hunters? Excellent. Who else would be recruiters? Boo! Anybody else? Anybody that have training providers? Got one there. Your dev managers. So yeah, people looking for great people in technical roles. Yeah? Fabulous. Well, it's really, really good to see so many people here. I am going to hand over to our panel. Maybe want to step up each time to introduce themselves. We've got Neil, we've got Erica, we've got James, we've got Gareth, and then we've got Sean. They're all going to tell you about their experiences hiring, their experiences trying to find great people to work for them. And then we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A. So, without further ado, Neil.
Can people hear me? Good. That's do I need to sit or stand, or are you sure? You said I could stand. Cool. So my name's Neil Casey. I work for a consultancy called ThoughtWorks. As a company, we are a technology consulting firm. We specialise in development and working with clients around some of their biggest challenges. We're about 4,500 people globally, and we've got just under 150 people in Manchester. I've been there just over a year, and have about 15 years in technical recruitment, so all based in the Northwest. What else do we need, Sean? Is there anything else? Star sign? About me, so I'm from the Northeast originally. Came to Manchester about 15 years ago from a biological science degree, and then went straight into recruitment, naturally, and started in a company working alongside Sean. Working in the Oracle market back in the day where it was devs, PLSQL, 9i databases. Was there for about 3 years until I actually got asked to go and work for Oracle themselves. So I went over to Heald Green, if anyone knows that area of Manchester near the airport, where Oracle have their head office for the north, and was there for just over 2.5 years recruiting for Oracle across EMEA. From there, really went into the technology industry with people like Capgemini, Logica, who are now CGI. Worked then for a smaller testing consultancy based out of Preston called Test Direct, who specialise in quality assurance. And then found myself at ThoughtWorks, which is like a bit like the Wizard of Oz. It's a bizarre company. It's based around technical innovation, but also social justice. So diversity, free internet, personal encryption. And yeah, it's really well known for things like the Agile movement and for things like test-driven development, BDD, continuous integration. So for my job, trying to find people who cover those type of areas in the markets that we have at the moment is really difficult. I'm hoping there's a few people out there tonight. But I think, yeah, from my perspective, it's a really rewarding piece because we do some interesting work. The developers have a really innovative approach to actually how they solve problems. And they come in daily and actually really do make a difference to society with the tech that they make, which is a really good thing to do. So that's me. That's ThoughtWorks. Obviously, I can answer anything else that comes out of the night. But, yeah, thank you. And I'll pass you to Erica.
I'm Erica Yates, currently working as a HR business partner for Shop Direct. For those who don't know, Shop Direct own Littlewoods brand and very.co.uk. We currently have circa 1,500 staff, and they range from buyers to merchandise, designers, warehouse, through to e-com, data scientists, so a broad range. My area specifically is data scientists, e-com, the delivery of our websites, and also the retail aspect, which is anything from PR through to fulfillment, so quite a broad range. Prior to that, predominantly I've always been in digital marketing agencies, so from leaving uni, gone into HR and always been in the digital arena, so quite a lot of experience within that area. Is it working? Mostly startup, small SMEs, where I set up HR function.
I know, I think it might hate women.
Okay, this is good. Startup HR function, take the business through to buyout or exit once the HR is established. Okay, so yeah, done a lot of work in SMEs where I've had a really general broad HR role from recruitment through to the strategy and working with the owners of the business, involving due diligence and sellout. So now my role is more strategic, so we're looking at ways to attract and retain the talent, as well as ways to restructure and accommodate all of the skills that we need in a business.
So my name's James Nash, and I am Head of Software Delivery at a company called HH Global. So we're a marketing execution firm, and like me, you probably have never heard of marketing execution. So best way of trying to summarize it is we follow up from me creative guys. So once you have all of your artwork and TV campaigns and so on and so forth designed, that's the point at which we pick up. We go off and we procure points of sale signs and so on and so forth. So in essence, it's about streamlining the execution of the marketing process on behalf of clients. We've got a pretty good client base. We work with companies like Google, ExxonMobil, Lloyds Bank, HSBC, Tommy Hilfiger, and a couple of others as well. So we're a global business. We currently turn over about 200 million, but we're looking to grow over the next 3 to 4 years to $1 billion. We are in year 1 of that growth plan, and we're already smashing our targets, so that's good news. And it's an exciting now, you know. So I joined about 6 months ago, and one of the things that I've done is really our technology is aligned to that growth plan, and we're over the next 6 months or so, we're going to be putting in place a plan to really start shaking that tech up. So that's quite an exciting ride for us. Aligned with the growth, it's going to be a wild ride for the next few years. My background, at the other end of my career, my first role was as a systems analyst working for Mars, and I somehow found myself looking after all of these systems that ran one of their factories, it wasn't the chocolate factory, it was the vending machine factory. So I was a bit gutted about that, but other than that, the role was pretty good. And they had very similar problems. You know, they'd had a software platform that had been running for about 5 years, full of tech debt, evolved organically, hadn't really had any kind of strategic direction behind it. And we were in lean manufacturing. Recognized was that trying to run a 5-year-old non-strategic and lean manufacturing environment where every day you're adding new requirements to the backlog and they need to be delivered for the following day's production wasn't working. It was deliver each ticket, and we were adding every single day, so the backlog was just kind of growing on a continuous basis. So what I did was worked with management, we re-platformed the business and turned that right around, reduced our time to market down by about 150%, and left that role, went on, had a platform about 5 years old, and again that was a kind of re-platform job. So pretty much most of my career has been around joining businesses where the platform is at a point, it's starting to creak, it's no longer supporting the strategic goals of the business, and it's been about re-platforming with either a growth plan or a desire to bring new clients in, move in new directions, consolidate, and so on and so forth. So the main focus of my career has really been around how do you build tech platforms, strategic goals of the business. And you know, this looks like another one of those. And hiring great talent is really all about having great projects for good talent to engage in. So that's what I'm going to be speaking about later.
Fabulous. So I know ThoughtWorks is big on, well, diversity, which brings me nicely over to you, Erica, because I know that you are too. You know, from my point of view, diverse companies make better decisions, and you can find all sorts of information if you type it into Google about why diversity is good for business. So tell us about what ShopDirect does around diversity, and that's, I guess, around retaining people as much as attracting them.
Okay, big area. So ShopDirect, we work really hard to support diversity wherever we can, and obviously there are a number of areas that touches on, but I suppose most recently for us in tech, it's around women. Whilst we're working really hard to do all that we can to support diversity, we're still aware that there's more we can do, and this is an area that we're really focusing on. But more generally speaking, from my experience within the digital arena, I think that it would be easy to characterise the problem with the shortage of women in tech by looking at the pipeline, and we're all quite focused on bringing people from school leavers into the industry. But my point of view would be a bit different in that there's 3 levels we should be looking at. So whilst we've got the school leavers and that's a completely different subject, I think that we don't do enough as a curriculum to support and influence those decisions early on. I think that we also need to look at middle management, and when we look at the figures today, there's probably only 5% of leaders in tech at the moment in the UK that are women. And so we should be thinking, who are the people we're succession planning into those leadership roles? Because those leadership roles are the ones that people are going to look at to influence, and if we don't have women in those positions, we're never going to really break that chain. So there's a number of different levels that I think are important when we touch on that subject, but I think as far as ShopDirect goes, we're doing what we can, and we could do more. From the industry point of view, a whole massive area we can look at from how do we, you know, I went to an event the other day, and in the forum there was a book sale, and I was absolutely amazed to find, you know, like the Spot the Dog Lift the Flat books. There was one there for a 5-year-old on how to code, and when you lift the keyboard up, it had the whole board of the keyboard and how it was all put together, and as it went through the book, at the end of the book, it was teaching you how to code. And I think that those kind of things we should be focusing on. You know, I certainly know that I am with my children, and I think that that's their future, and if they want to get involved and be successful in any kind of role nowadays, it's going to involve a level of tech. So, you know, I read a statistic the other day that said 74% of students that were asked were interested in computer science. And then when they then studied who was at A-level computer science, 7% of those students were females. So there was a big chunk of information missing there that I think probably we need to delve into. But then when you look even further, out of those 7% of females that studied at A-level, only 50% of them went on to work in tech. So you can imagine 50% of, you know, the 7, I think we're losing people along the way. And I think we could focus more on having influence as businesses, not only from university and what courses they're doing and how we can pick them up fresh from uni, but also how do we intercept the curriculum and how do we influence that? Because I think whilst we nod to it, we should question how much influence are we having as businesses.
So, James, you are a technical lead building technical teams, correct? You just had to bring somebody in from Madrid to fulfill a technical position that you needed to fill, right? Yeah. So, can you tell us about how you fill big technical teams, top technical roles?
Yeah, sure. So, hey, the mic works. That's good. So I think my kind of attitude. Here we go. Yeah, go on. Yeah, so I think my attitude, I guess, to hiring people is pretty simple. It's try and find good people, you know, people who are passionate about tech, people who understand tech, but crucially people who can also understand how to apply that technology to add value for the business. So it's about something I coach my teams around as well is think about if you're making a technical decision, how does that drive value, you know, and trying to connect that. And it's also something I look for in the teams I'm building, you know, in the people I hire as well. So a big part of the interview process for me is around talk me through new technologies that you've sought out. How have you applied those in the roles that you've been doing? You know, why did you do that? Why did you make those decisions? I think if you bring good people in who have those kind of skills and have the ability to do that, then actually, from a management point of view, your role is significantly easier and you can just kind of get out of the way. I think people, you know, the best developers and the best architects and the best QA managers are people who are really passionate about technology, who really enjoy finding out about new technologies and exploring and figuring out what they can do with it. So hackathons are a big part of kind of creating the cultures that I build within my team as well, giving people the opportunity to do that not just at home in the bedroom, but also in the workplace as well. One of the things I've got my team doing at the moment is thinking about what would a good structure be for them as a team to bring new ideas in, and then if we need to spin off projects from that to go away and build new products, how can we do that? And you know, that's a big change from where HH Global was in terms of development, where previously it's been very sales-led, very reactive. It's been very much about, hey guys, here's a new client, they're onboarding next week, get this done. And we're trying to move away from that. We're trying to give our guys the opportunity to explore, create ideas, you know, be innovative, think, create. Yeah, and if I really create the kind of hello? Hello? Try again. I really firmly believe if you create that kind of culture, that's what is going to attract the best talent, you know, because that's what best talent does. And if that's what they're doing, get out of the way and let them do it. And then my role is much more about how do we steer that kind of drive for innovation in the right direction. So that's my approach, I guess.
And obviously the glory, so Karis, you're a CTO, which is a gold dust kind of job in the startup world anyway. How would you say that recruiting for a startup, recruiting technical people, in a new area of work, data analysis on a mass scale, how easy is that? How do you?
I don't sleep very well. I think a startup isn't right for everybody. I think we see an awful lot of people that like the idea of working in a startup, but when they realise that, you were saying that you're coming out of that sales-driven cycle. We're still very much in that sales-driven cycle. So as much as I'd love to build teams that can sit on a project for a while, bring it to fruition, unfortunately, we've still got a huge amount of waterfall. So that comes as a bit of a shock to some people. Some people that we see, they come from very structured environments, so maybe from corporates. And when you actually explain the reality, you can quickly find out the ones that have the mentality for working in a startup and everything that entails, from those that really need that structure to thrive. And neither one of those is right. It's just that some people work well in a startup and some people don't. I would work horribly in a corporate. So, I haven't spent all my life working in startups for any other reason that I don't like corporates. Sorry. For us, we have a much more, I guess, touchy-feely interview process. No, not inappropriately. But the first thing is to get somebody in and just to sit down and talk to them, to find out who they are, what drives them, what made them come to sit in front of us in the first place. And then from there, we will then, something that's changed since I've been there is we've instigated more code tests as we try and scale up. Especially on the data side, there was very little in terms of tasks for the candidates to do, which is something that we now do a lot more of. I'd love to get to that stage of Yeah, absolutely, because I think we were sitting down with too many people that weren't of the right caliber, and it wastes their time and it wastes our time, and it is a good way of streamlining. And sometimes we will do those tests first if we feel a little borderline about somebody. That test first. You're asking the wrong person. We tend to use data sets from things like Kaggle and fairly freeform, actually. Basically, here's the data. Go and bring us some insight, and it's incredible. There are some really interesting things that come out of that. The last data analyst that we've hired actually came up, and I can't remember now, which is really bad, but actually came up with some use of that data that nobody else had done. And we've seen lots of those tests, and that's instantly somebody that you want to look at because they're thinking laterally, which is fantastic for us. On the coding side, it's much more traditional. We're tending to hire a lot of Scala, also a bit of Python, but mainly Scala. So there, it's very much, what are the functional chops of the person applying? And that's actually really quick and easy to get the wheat from the chaff there. They are building big data analytics systems. So if it's the data scientists, they're building models that bring insight from machine learning, from text analytics, from traditional data analytics. There's some crossover with business analytics there as well. So it'll be insights in terms of interests or due diligence, or can we ascertain the identification of this person from the input data plus social media data and things like that. You know, it's those kind of problems that we tackle. It's become much more machine learning based as we've moved towards the marketing and personalization, because there you know, the world is your oyster in terms of the kind of insights that you can bring back. So that's the kind of things that people are building. And then for the engineers, it's basically the vehicles, the APIs that those models are consumed by. That's, yeah. Yes. I have no other answer for that.
Sean, recruiters are often the interface between people that need people and people that need jobs. You've been doing this for 15 years. Can you tell us, you know, tech has certainly changed, jobs have certainly changed. Has recruitment changed, and what can we expect recruiters to be doing, you know, in the future to solve or be part of the solution to this big talent problem?
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. Recruitment's changed massively, I think. I mean, any industry would evolve over 15 years, I should imagine. But I actually see quite a lot of similarities between recruitment and also digital or technology. I mean, Neil will vouch for that. I remember when we were posting CVs out in envelopes to managers, believe it or not, to get their attention all the years ago. But I think the thing that has really changed is the technology influence on recruitment. So both positively and negatively, I would say. So I first remember about when LinkedIn first came big on the scene, probably about 10 years ago now, that LinkedIn was touted to be the death of a recruiter, whether that's an agency-based recruiter or an internal recruiter, because LinkedIn was going to be the tool that would just connect every hiring manager with potential job seekers, you know, with no questions asked, and would fill out technical teams, no problems. And that would be the death of recruitment as an industry. I think last year, recruitment as an industry globally is worth £350 billion. So it's probably fair to say that didn't quite happen. But I think the reason that didn't happen is the human element that brings. So fast forwarding to today and technology and digital, Gareth touched on areas of data science, machine learning. You know, we hear about artificial intelligence, robots, algorithms. You know, we're told that pretty much all of this is going to replace the role of a recruiter. Again, somehow these machines, these robots, are going to find that magical profile, put it in a hiring manager's inbox, and all of a sudden, you know, recruitment is HR-related recruitment, internal agency is going to be null and void. I disagree personally, and I think the reason for that is, you know, you can never replace the personal element of recruitment. I think, you know, can a machine understand the culture of a business by going on site at that business and then match a relevant candidate based on that candidate's motivations, ambitions? You know, can a robot basically take a passive candidate who might not be actively looking, but take that person out to like-minded companies and introduce the value that person can add? So I think that in some ways technology has been brilliant, but I think in a lot of other ways it has made recruitment lazy and impersonal. So, I mean, how many people are active LinkedIn users in here, can I ask? Can you show me a show of hands? Okay, cool. How many people have seen a recruiter bashing post from candidates on LinkedIn? Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I think, and that kind of leads me on to my next point, really. I think this is where the kind of experience, the candidate experience part of it comes in. You know, technology can help people match people with jobs, can help people, you know, spam out CVs or spam out potential job opportunities. But I think what it can't help is the experience that a candidate has. And I suppose any advice I would personally give to businesses here today looking at how they improve attracting the best talent or retaining the best talent. for me, that's all about candidate experience. You know, be that, I advise a lot of my customers looking at, your interview process. Ultimately, is that person coming in and getting a real flavour of your brand, of your team? Little things like, are you looking at the demographics of the person that you're interviewing and trying to match them up with a like-minded demographic in your team? You know, a female interviewee being interviewed by a female member of your team. You know, I think there's tricks. Still, I see far too much of companies just seeing interviews as okay, let's check if this person's right or not. And I think there's been some innovative ways discussed from the guys about how that's different, but I think that for me would be a big takeaway point. I think it also comes down to candidates who are unsuccessful. So, just because a candidate is maybe unsuccessful in your interview process, then not maybe giving constructive feedback, timely feedback, that, these candidates, in a day and age where someone can go and have a bad meal and all of a sudden it's over TripAdvisor, it's over Facebook, and that impacts that brand or that restaurant, for example. It's exactly the same with candidates. So, they'll go away, they've got their network, and they'll speak to their network, particularly in digital. It's more connected than ever. So I think that for me would be a real takeaway that I would like to see people take from today. Thank you.
Questions from the floor. I am going to run. I'm not going to run because Kelly right here is going to give me a question.
Thank you. I was wondering how you knew my name and then I realised, okay. I'm really interested. I work for Manchester Airport Group, by the way, on their digital startup, Mago. And we are currently in that space of trying to grow a startup within a corporate infrastructure. So I get where you're coming from because I hate the corporates too, but I get the fun aspect of that too. I'm working with Manchester Airport Group with their digital startup Mago. Okay, so we're building a new business within a very big business. We are a digital startup with money, which helps, but it also brings that kind of cultural clash. And where I'm trying to take the business is very different to where it is today. So I have a huge challenge. We have huge CSR commitments in the local area. What I'm really interested from the panel and anybody else in the room as well is that grassroots level. So I'm going to do a real Fergie on this. How do you get in there and proactively develop and attract that talent at the school level?
Yeah. So how do you proactively develop talent at a school level from Manchester Airport Group, but a startup within that? Erica?
Okay. So I worked in a digital marketing agency from there being 5 staff. It was back in 2002, so it was a long time ago. And I know. We took that business right through to sell out. We sold to a Swedish listed company, so I've experienced that difficulty from a HR perspective. I think at the beginning my role was people to self-learn. That was a big focus for us, so we tried to include people who perhaps weren't so comfortable attending meetings that they'd never done before, and we put the onus on the staff, I suppose in the view of succession planning. So we knew that we wanted those people to be in our future, and we wanted them to take responsibility for that. So we focused a lot on self-learning. That was probably, if I could say one thing, that's what it would be.
Was part of the question about how you attract people as well? Yeah. And I think we recently we've been doing a project with Stockport Council, and we've done their digital by design sort of reorg around how they, as a council, become basically they're connecting all of their services, they're connecting with the surrounding society, they're moving from being a sort of crisis and intervention type service to being a more of a support and interaction piece. And this digital by design, the website, the services that we're building are going to allow that. But the reality is, as a developer, Stockport Council website probably wasn't the #1 place to go and search for a job. And one of the things we find at ThoughtWorks is when we do projects like this, how do we hand over to a team that necessarily doesn't have the skills or doesn't have the tech stack? And part of our job is to actually help them build their story, the tech story. what does the tech do? How has it been built? What's the actual impact in what it's going to actually achieve? What are the cool bits about it? Because over the last 6 months, us working with them around that, working with them in the social space, working with them around the different meetup events, having their tech teams that they have already in place, who are maybe not relevant from a skill set perspective, but getting them to go to their meetup groups talking about this. And it generates a lot more attraction, a lot more network, a lot more activity in that space than what you're expecting if you just put an advert out. Because the reality is you'll know all the good bits about what you're doing and all the cool bits and all the nice bits of tech that other people would be interested in, but you've got to let other people know that. And the community in Manchester is really good for really putting that message out there. And with people like Tech North and Manchester Digital and other organisations like that, there's so many different things that can propagate the message out there when you're doing something well. We've seen that well with Co-op Digital recently in Manchester. We're seeing with Auto Trader, Late Rooms, AO, Hello Soda. Lots of different companies who can go out there, get things right, and then share that.
I'm just wondering, very general question this, how long on average do the panel spend reading a CV?
How long, honestly, on average, do you spend reading CVs, guys?
Honest answer, or I spend longer now than I used to. And the reason being is, at ThoughtWorks, we're not necessarily language specific, so we're very agnostic about what languages we use. So I'll do a brief review of what languages they've covered, make sure that there's an alignment. What I'm really looking for is their approach to coding, what they're passionate about. I'm looking for, are they involved in any meetup groups? Are they involved in communities? Do they just come to work, write code and go home? Or do they actually look at the code as a bit of a craft? And how do they do that and how can I bring that out of a CV? Because a lot of times if you just go through the buzzwords, when I first joined ThoughtWorks, that's what I did. And I went through the buzzwords. If I saw TDD, if I saw object-oriented principles, give them a call, get the test out, and more often than not, they wouldn't pass. So I'm looking for that.
Oh, God. Yeah, I skim a CV, and if I see anything interesting or any of the buzzwords, then I would probably read further. I don't get involved with the recruitment in my current role. We have a talent acquisition team, so I'm less inclined to get involved. The talent acquisition team at Shop Direct are really thorough. They would always view any email, any phone call, any CV, and they would explore all avenues for any position within the business. So they're probably better at it than me.
Well, hey, it works. Amazing. So I probably spend on average about 20 minutes to half an hour reading a CV. And part of the reason for that is the last thing I look at on the CV is actually the tech skills. For me, that's probably too good to be true. Yeah, for me, that's probably the least important thing on the CV. What I'm actually looking for is how does the candidate think? What have they done in previous roles? I'm looking at the experience. I'm trying to read between lines and figure out what's the mentality here, trying to get a feel for personality. And I think one of the things that allows me to do that, back to your point, Sean, is this is where you guys really add the value for me, is you've already done a lot of pre-filtering. For me, I think everything you said about the role of an agent and that personal touch is really key. Because for me, you guys are there, you have your finger on the pulse, you understand what good candidates look like, you're recruiting day in, day out. And that's the thing that kind of takes away all of the filtering, from my time and allows me to focus on, once I have 3 or 4 good CVs on my table, what do I think about each of those candidates? So it is, for me, around about 20 minutes to half an hour per CV. But I can only do that because I spend a significant amount of time working with my partner agencies and trying to get, make sure they really understand what is it I'm looking for from each and every role. And also, they help me understand what's possible in terms of what the state of market is as well. Once we've done that, I get good CVs back. A lot of pre-filtering's done. I can focus on trying to really get to know the candidate through their CV, plus phone interviews, and we go from there.
I think if I'm honest, I spend more time on the CVs that are sent direct than the ones that come through agencies because of that pre-screening that happens. We're much more likely to interview the people that have been pre-screened, but anybody that's taken the effort to seek us out and seek a job on our website, I think I owe it to give it more time, to really delve into the CV.
I think, I suppose, to give some constructive advice, I think, I'd agree that there's a lot of detail spent looking from managers at a CV, but a lot of the time, for me as an agent that gets hundreds of CVs in a week, it's things about CVs that would stand out. So, references, more and more we're starting to see candidates send in maybe testimonials from managers they've worked with previously. Do developers have Stack Overflow, GitHub? Do they have a LinkedIn that backs up what they say? So I think in today's day and age, the CV is really important, but it's the supporting documentation that would come with that CV that I'd also focus on.
Even if I don't put out my CV, my CV seems to be on file, and I'm still getting probably a good 1 or 2 phone calls every couple days, and I haven't applied for a job in months. And but yet I talk to the recruiter talks me into the job, you're so perfect for the role, we would just love to have you apply for this job. I apply for the job, and then I don't hear back, or I'll hear back 3 months later and go, oh, by the way, are you still interested in the role? It's been 3 months. Why do you want me to still talk to you? It almost feels like a bad date.
So, recruit ? Sean.
I would say choose your dates first of all. Would be the comment. Don't just go on a date with any recruiter that calls you. I would on a serious note, I think job boards first of all a lot of the time would keep your information even if you're not actively looking at the moment. So if you have looked in the past, a recruiter calls you, ask them where they've got your details from, because there's probably an easy fix of they've been stored somewhere on some job board, then you can get that sorted. I think secondarily for me would be think about the job that you want to do. It sounds like you're not actively looking for a job at the moment. I don't know if that's the case. Oh, there you go. Well, I can vouch for Hello Soda. They're a very good company. I can vouch for those guys. But I think about specifically what you want to do in terms of your career, what job you want to undertake, and then don't let somebody else deviate you away from that particular path, because if it sounds like you're getting frustrated because they're selling you into jobs that you're probably not ideal for, but you're listening to a recruiter. I would stand firm on what you want to do and only work with recruiters who back that up.
Yeah, I just wanted to second that as well. So I remember, probably about 5 years ago, I was looking for a role, and it took me about 6 months to find the right role. In my mind now, there's probably 2 types of recruiters. There are the sort of volumetric-driven recruiters who just want to get as many CVs into roles as possible. And then there's, Sean. I think avoid the volumetric, recruiters. Try and figure out early on, are they just there to get you across a desk and out of the role and into a job as quickly as possible, or are they actually there to really get to know you as a person, figure out what your career plan is, what the next step in your career will be to kind of get you to where you want to be in 5 years' time. I've been quite lucky. I've worked with a few agents as candidate and I now probably only ever talk to, if I'm looking for a role, I only ever talk to about 3 or 4 agents. and they're the ones who take the time, who really focus on what are your career aspirations, what do you need to do to help you build that CV. I talked earlier about value that agencies can add from a hiring manager point of view, but it's the same the other way around. You guys are consultants in the sense that you understand what it takes to be whatever my job role that I want in 3 years' time is. You understand what it'll take to get there, and you can help me figure out what the role that I need now in order to build my CV to get to that point is. I need to focus on building relationships with those kinds of agents and just filter out the rest of the noise. That for me personally has been the thing that's worked best.
So I'm on your team because I get agency calls literally 30, 40 times a day asking to send CVs to ThoughtWorks. And it's frustrating, and as much as you say you don't work with agencies, the reality isn't devil things. You know what? I'll be more worried when they stop calling. I'll be more worried when they actually stop calling, because that means we won't be recruiting. That means actually, from a CV perspective, you're not going to necessarily be relevant for jobs where at the moment, for whatever reason, they think that you've got stuff there. You can do fixes, what Sean mentioned, which I would certainly advise. So the fixes around maybe looking at your job boards, where you put your CV historically, I would definitely have a look at that. Definitely advise around sort of maybe asking them to put you as a do not call status, because they do have that within their ATS systems. But yeah, from my perspective, it's just as frustrating from the other side of the fence. And as much as when I don't want calls from them, if there ever comes a point when I do want to work with agencies, I'll probably be receptive to that call. So there is a little bit of a necessary evil on that. But yeah, again, I'll probably be more worried when they actually stop calling.
Hi, my name's Alan. I run a coding boot camp called North Coders, and and I'm interested in knowing what you're looking for in junior developers.
Funnily enough, we've just hired someone through North Coders. Yeah, so a few more of those, please. I'll not mention any names because he hasn't joined yet. But I think for us, again, it's very, very wide. It's about passion, it's interest in technology. A lot of the times, Sean mentioned about additional stuff going on, just not necessarily a CV or a knowledge of something. It's actually, are they in meetup groups? Have they been doing stuff during their university time? When we work with boot camps, what are they doing before they go to the boot camp? Is it a real passion? A lot of the time with boot camps, and I'll not go into a big sales pitch, but they've made the conscious decision to go into coding. The coding that they learn and the techniques that they learn in boot camps is relevant now. It's not about getting someone with a computer science degree who maybe goes to one of the more relevant universities, which is excellent, but sometimes they come out with more dated experience, which again is probably a bigger topic about where the curriculum is at the moment. But with boot camps, you're guaranteed that they're going to be relevant as they come out, and you're honing their experience around that relevance. So for us, it's about relevance. It's about actually what they're doing now, what they're passionate about, and are they in it for the long term.
Have you guys got? Do you use boot camps? Where do you get your developers from? No. No. Goodness. Yeah. Go for juniors.
I think for me, what I look for in junior developers is just a core understanding rather than a language or a certain system, or I mean, you see so many CVs that say, when we hire for Angular or React or something like that, you see so many companies put adverts out for those specific skills, but actually, that's not really what is important. It's the core underlying principles that are important. So when we hire, and we have hired junior developers, it's really that core ability to think like a developer rather than having, I mean, even in our case with functional programming, even if it's a junior developer that only has a passing knowledge of functional programming, they still know how to develop, and you can teach them that, and they will pick it up. And I've got plenty of senior developers that will help with that. So that's
I don't know whether I can jump in and say may I ask if you guys what your makeup of EU and international staff versus local staff is, and whether you're kind of concerned about Brexit. Said it.
Okay, let me see if I get this right. Romania, Hungary, Poland, Israel, China, Estonia. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've got a very broad, mix of international people. Yeah. And Brexit does worry us. Yeah. Of course.
Not really. I don't think from a development point of view. Most of so we outsource quite heavily, but we outsource primarily outside of the EU. So for us, there's not going to be a huge impact. As a business, I think we have discussed and debated it, but broadly, our board took a positive view on Brexit. I think as a business, we're pretty relaxed about the whole thing. No particular view on that one.
If there was something that you could improve about recruiters, to make your lives easier, is it something that you would do? Do you bring it in-house? Do you, you just use LinkedIn? What's your kind of dream recruiter look like?
It's a good question, actually. I think one of the things that I've always found about recruitment, they call themselves recruitment consultancies, but there's always been historically a very lack of the consultancy aspect. It's been a recruitment agency. And I think things like tonight, this type of event where it's bringing the industry together, is much more of what you'd see from a proper business consultancy. They're not necessarily, yes, I'm sure Sean will tap people up during the night later on after a few drinks, but this is about networking. It's about building knowledge. It's about building people's awareness of what's going on in the industry. And that's the type of impact that, for me, that's where recruitment consultancies have got the most knowledge. They've got the industry impact. They can really give us, as in-house recruiters, an idea of what's going on outside of our own vision, our own scope of knowledge. And for me, it's invaluable, really. So more events like this, more non-CV related activities is the way forward.
So I'm going to speak from a non-shop direct point of view because we have a talent acquisition a department that take care of that. But previous to Shop Direct, being the head of HR, had to make some key decisions about how we bring talent into the business. And that's been in a number of different industries. So vehicle remarketing solutions through to financial print, and also Ellis Brigham, who is a mountain sports retailer. So a broad array of businesses there. And for me, it's probably the agency's ability to get under the skin of the culture and really understand what it is that we're looking for. Obviously, through the years, the skills have changed, and now we're at a stage where we're struggling as businesses to recruit the talent. But back in the day, it was more about the culture, and I think we would be foolish to forget that. Whilst we're all fighting for skills, I think it's important that we consider how those people affect our business and how they ring true a value of togetherness. So for me, it's the ability of an agent to be able to really understand the culture of the business, and not just of what our values are and what our strap statement is, but also how we operate, how we communicate and how we collaborate across the business. I've worked with Sean since 2002 across all of those industries, and obviously we've had affairs. I've been with other agencies, but I've found each time that Sean specifically has been able to understand the culture of the business really well, and I think that's just from spending time inside the business, which not other agencies do.
Yeah, so I definitely second everything both Neil and Erica have just said. I think for me it's all about getting to know the business, understanding the culture, understanding the direction of the business. For me, recruiters, I agree, it's about consultancy. It's about, you guys are really partners in helping to build the team, but it's going to drive the business forwards. I think I kind of see three goals. One is, as I said earlier, about having a finger on the market. What does a good candidate for a particular type of role look like right now? Who are the best candidates out there? How do we benchmark other candidates against kind of role models in the industry? All of that kind of stuff. One is about, I guess, helping understand how other businesses are structuring their development teams as well. You know, what's the latest thinking in terms of what a good development team looks like, in terms of the culture that other businesses are trying to build, in terms of what's attracting good talent. So that whole consultancy bit is really, really important. And then third bit, I guess, is helping to build our profile within the market and getting our name out there. You know, I try to have kind of weekly, if not monthly, calls with all of the partners that I work with. You know, tell them a bit about who we are, what we're doing, the direction we're heading in, and I'm sort of trusting you guys to then go out and talk to people out there, even if we're not actively hiring. You know, it's worth getting our name out there.
My final question is, okay, so people talk about the fact that there is a talent crisis or a skills crisis, but you guys have all implied that it's all about the culture of a business, you know, and people being the right fit. Do you believe in Manchester here that there are enough people to do the jobs that you need them to do, or do you think that do you think that you know, we're at a loss, we can't fill these vacancies, and you know, our businesses can't grow? This is a yes, no, or a short answer, and then we're going to wrap up. Yes.
Yes. There's a skill shortage. That's one of the reasons we're all here. But I don't think that most businesses are tapping into skills that are out there. For example, mums who are part-time workers, do we have the infrastructure to support flexible benefits in corporate companies? I think the answer most of the time is no. I think we are choosing candidates that fit within our current infrastructure, and we're not thinking outside the box. So we could possibly adapt or change what we're doing, to accommodate.
Yes, but it's somewhat the fault of looking for specific skills than underlying talent. If you're a business and you're looking for a specific skill, again, I'll go back to Angular again. I don't know why I keep on going back to that. But if you're looking for that, you will only attract those people. But there are a whole bunch of other people that understand how to develop JavaScript much better and will bring themselves up to speed if you give them the opportunity. So there is a shortage, but some of it is kind of self-imposed by being too narrow.
Yeah, I would agree with Gareth. I think again, frustrations from a recruiter point of view would be maybe looking at, from a technical point of view, people who might be 70-80% of the job description, particularly for permanent roles, because you've got the opportunity to work with these guys. Most of them are talented people who within 4 weeks could probably get themselves up to speed. But I also think from a year's experience point of view, one of the things I find challenging as a recruiter, I'm sure Neil has the same as some of the guys up here do, is specifying, oh, they must be a senior with this much experience, or they must be someone with this much experience. So I think part of it would be driven by maybe sometimes people who don't always understand IT and are saying, okay, well, we need this many years experience. So I think if people can start to revisit that and look more at the person, what they can learn, what they can develop, then that will open up the talent pool.